Good morning. Thank you all for showing up today to support the health and safety of LGBTQ plus young people across America. My name is James Black, and I'm the CEO of the Trevor Project. I am devastated to be here today. Devastated to be discussing the elimination of a historic and bipartisan life-saving program. Now I have about 3 minutes to deliver my remarks. By the time I'm done, at least 4 LGBTQ plus young people will have attempted to take their own lives. By the time this press conference is over, that number jumps to 40. For 27 years, the Trevor Project has provided life-saving crisis care to LGBTQ plus youth, a group we know are more than 4 times as likely to attempt suicide compared to their peers. In 2022, the Trevor Project had the privilege of supporting the launch of the 988 Lifeline LGBTQ plus youth specialized services, a landmark achievement for expanding access to evidence-based mental health crisis care for LGBTQ plus youth in every corner of the United States. Since that time, counselors have supported more than 1.5 million LGBTQ plus young people through their darkest moments. 1.5 million young Americans have trusted this program with their lives. That's 1.5 million reasons why this program works, and the growing need cannot be ignored. When the legislation for this program was signed into law by President Trump during his first term, Democrats and Republicans came together with unity to address a public health crisis. They unified around a fundamental American principle: protecting our nation's most vulnerable youth. Our federal government has made a commitment, and they made a commitment then, and this program has become a bipartisan legacy that reflects the best of American values. It wasn't a bipartisan issue or a partisan issue then, and it isn't a partisan issue now. Ending suicide among LGBTQ plus young people is not about politics. It's about people. It's about risk, not identity. And the most important thing to know about these young people is that they are our friends and our family members, our neighbors, our children and grandchildren. They're not caricatures, and they should never be used as political footballs. And we do not have to agree on every policy issue to agree that every young American's life is worth saving. And the data is undeniable, because the government's own data shows rising demand for LGBTQ plus specialized services, with SAMHSA reporting nearly 70,000 young people have been utilizing 988's Press 3 option each month over the past quarter. That's nearly 2,200 LGBTQ plus youth in crisis every single day. And as this demand increases, it's unthinkable that our federal government has chosen to cut this literal lifeline that millions of our country's most vulnerable youth rely on. As I'm closing out, I want to send a message directly to our LGBTQ plus young people. I want you to remember 2 important things. Number 1, we know that you are scared. Our counselors have sat with you through those fears as you try to make sense of this decision. I want you to know that those counselors have wept with us privately. But I need you to know that the Trevor Project isn't going away. Our trained counselors will still be here for you 24/7, just as they always been. No matter what the government does, the Trevor Project will be here to support you always. And number 2, you have millions and millions of people in this country rooting for you. This country, this world, it is a far better place with you in it. You are loved, you are worthy, and you matter. And lastly, I want to say thank you. Thank you to the more than 50,000 Americans who have signed this petition, who have called for keeping these life-saving services open. I want to say thank you to my colleagues here today from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention and the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and other mental health leaders advocating along with us. And finally, thank you to the bipartisan group of lawmakers who have shown up to support LGBTQ plus youth during this challenging time. I urge every member of Congress to join these champions here today and do all they can to reverse this fatal decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, James, and thank you for the work that the Trevor Project does. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sharice Davids. I represent Kansas's 3rd Congressional District, and I appreciate all of you being here. I wish we weren't standing here under these circumstances this morning. I wish that we were gathering for something more positive, but unfortunately, we're standing here on the day that the life-saving service that exists for LGBTQ plus youth who are suffering is being shut down. And this administration, the Trump administration, is doing that. I'm here because there are too many people in our country who are either forced to be silent or truly are unable to speak out and feel powerless in these moments. And too many of the people we're talking about are young people, the youth who depend on us as adults to help them, to protect them, to support them, and to ensure that they are able to grow up and become whatever it is they want to do to thrive. I am the first person from the state of Kansas who's part of the part of the LGBTQ plus community to be elected to the Congress. And I can tell you that while I have often felt very supported, I think too many people, particularly in the LGBTQ plus community, but a lot of people across the country know what it's like to grow up and feel isolated, to feel like you don't have anyone to turn to feel like no one understands you, to feel pushed out and pushed aside and pushed down. And I often thank my lucky stars that I had the mom that I did. My mom was supportive of me. My mom loved me and made sure that I knew that she loved me. And too many kids don't get that. Too many kids end up in moments of crisis because they think that the world would be better if they weren't here. And they get sent that message by too many people in this country and too many people in leadership. And I think that this is exactly the kind of moment, a moment of crisis where the difference between life and death is whether you have somebody that you can reach out to and say, I need support, I need help, I'm scared. Since the line launched, since 988 launched and the LGBTQ plus community has had someone to call, over 1.3 or almost 1.3 million calls have gone into this crisis line. Texts, chats, that outreach, life-saving outreach. There's more than 1 million of those moments where someone thought that it would be better if they weren't here and they had someone to call. There's 1 million moments where someone was scared and they had the 988 Press 3 line to call. And now because of the Trump administration, that line is being cut. I think we already heard this, but we have to be really clear about this. This isn't just a phone line. This isn't politics. This is people. And it's a lot of young people. It's people who are trying to survive in a world that tells them that they don't belong and that they shouldn't be here. And that need is growing. Last year, we saw that 40% of LGBTQ youth seriously contemplated suicide. That's not a statistic, that's a crisis. Every single one of us, whether you are part of the LGBTQ community, whether someone in your family is or you have friends that are, every single one of us should be concerned about that. That's a crisis. And this was a place that people could turn in that crisis, and now it's gone. We should be expanding services like this, not eliminating them. We need to be investing in care and prevention and help and support, not cutting off those support services. I will say too, for as heartbroken as I am in this moment, I will never lose hope because I know that the LGBTQ plus community is a resilient community, a strong community. We have always found ways to support each other. We have always found ways to help each other through crisis, through the good stuff. And we're going to continue to do that. And I promise that there are so many of us. Myself, I'm not done fighting for this. The group of people that's here today, all the organizations that have joined in support of trying to push back on this, we're all here working together to try to make sure that mental health funding is available, to make sure that you all have access to care, and to make sure that no young person ever feels like they shouldn't be here. We have the opportunity right now to join together and push back against that idea that any young person shouldn't be here. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate my colleagues joining us today, the Trevor Project, and so many others. I'm going to turn it over now to one of my colleagues who has been such a champion, Congresswoman Doris Matsui. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharice, for those beautiful, heartfelt words. And all of us standing behind you just felt every single one of those words and felt enveloped in what you were talking about. And I want to thank you, and I want to thank James and the Trevor Project for being here and doing everything you can. And also the mental health advocates who've been here for so many years and moving along and really trying to make sure that when you have those horrible thoughts, there is a place you can call. And I really feel that now is the moment. It is so important because the stakes can't be higher right now. Suicide is a very difficult thing. Whether it is in any of the communities, it's very difficult. And in particular, I think about what's happening today with the Trump administration, really canceling the 988 crisis and suicide line for LGBTQ. It's so cruel. It is totally cruel because it doesn't have to happen at all. Now, that option, the three option on the 988 lifeline is really the LGBTQ lifeline itself. And they have highly educated and really just thoughtful and compassionate staff answering. And I think about the fact that when you're young and you don't know where to go, and maybe it's not the moment you can talk to your parents or your friends or anyone else, you need someone or some voice out there. And I think this is what this is all about. It has saved lives. It has saved lives. Just because just calling and talking to someone makes someone realize, oh, there is somebody on the other side talking with me. And maybe I don't have to take my life. Maybe we can talk about what we can do. I just really feel that without this lifeline, and I will also tell you, and Sharice said this is very bipartisan 3 years ago. It came out of our committee, and it was rapidly passed out of the Congress and signed because it was bipartisan. It should be bipartisan today. Anyone that has young people in their lives understands that there could be challenging times when they may not be able to talk to you. Maybe there's not a grandparent or a friend. So we need to have something like this. And honestly, sometimes it's harder to talk to a person. It's sometimes easier to get on a line and text or voice or whatever to say, I'm in trouble. Can you help me? And that to me is so incredible. That's something that has helped so many young people and given young people so much hope. Yes, they've been resilient because they've had to get through this, but they need more than that. They need somebody else to say, yes, you can do this. Let's do it together. And you have a lot of other people behind you. You know, it's just one of these things, and I know we went through the statistics, and they're very, very important because it indicates there's so many young people out there who reached out and talked to people and really thought, oh my gosh, there is another way here. I don't have to give up. And that's what we are here about. We are also not going to give up either. That's not us. We just don't give up. We are also resilient, and we are really persistent, and we're not going to give up at all. And, I do denounce the Trump administration and its cruelty regarding many things, but this thing today in particular. Oh my goodness. I mean, young people who are searching for their identity, which way to go, who do I talk to? We need to give them an avenue to do that. And my colleagues here, and there's already 100 of us that are standing with LGBTQ, and there are more too. And, I come from Sacramento, California. That is my district. And California has stepped up. And we want these things to be an example that this is so important, that we all need to step up. And I think with our, advocacy, our pleas, our stories from people that we hear from, the understanding that everyone is important, everyone. And that is some message that we have to get out there too. I've always been supportive of the LGBT community because, it's all of us. It's family, it's neighbors, it's people you know. And if this country means anything at all, it really means that we are together and we support each other and we care for each other because we're a stronger country because of that. And for me, young people are the future of our country. And we don't ever want to let them feel that they're not heard or considered or whatever it is. We're going to bring forth thoughtful, strong citizens who went through something where they said, oh my gosh, I can't do this anymore. Yes, you can. You can. And we had 988, the suicide lifeline, to help. And we want to continue that. And we're going to say, no, you can't do this. We're fighting. We're fighting, and I know others will fight also. So at this point in time, I want to introduce another fighter, someone I've been involved in mental health issues for a long time, Paul Tonko.
Thank you, Doris. Thank you, Doris. Well, good morning, everyone. I stand with my colleagues with the backdrop behind us of the United States Congress, the Capitol. And I stand with the many of my colleagues who believe sincerely that the institution of Congress should advance policies and resource advocacy that comforts, that heals, that nurtures. That hasn't been the saga of late. The impact of the big, beautiful bill, which is a big betrayal bill, now law, will make access and affordability to mental health services and health care and behavioral health all the more difficult. It may be totally denied those people. And so what we're addressing today is compounded by that result. And so we stand here today witnessing an act of unconscionable cruelty. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifelines LGBTQ plus youth services program is a literal lifeline, and it's being ripped away by this administration that is heartless. Since 2022, this program has served nearly 1.3 million young people in their darkest moments. This wasn't general support. These were trained counselors, many LGBTQ plus of the community, who could understand the unique needs of the community. And the need for this resource could not be more urgent. Nearly 40% of LGBTQ plus youth seriously considered suicide last year. But when they have someone who sees them, who understands them, well, they survive, they heal, and they grow. I've heard from constituents across my district, including mental health professionals, who've seen firsthand the difference that this service makes. And what does this administration do? They shut it down. As Congresswoman Matsui said, this started as a bipartisan project with great support. What has happened in the decade? Why are we so divided and polarized as a nation? Leaders truly bring people together. They don't divide us as an American community. And this is not about budget. This is a calculated concession to extremists, people who wish queer and trans kids simply didn't exist. And for what? To score cheap political points at the expense of vulnerable young lives? Not on our watch. To my colleagues in Congress, especially my Republican colleagues who claim to care about kids, step up and prove it. Demand this lifeline be restored and tell your leadership that the lives of LGBTQ plus youth are not expendable. To every LGBTQ plus young person watching, know you are loved. You are not alone. And we will fight like hell for you, for your safety, your dignity, and yes, your right to thrive. Finally, to the Trevor Project and all of the folks here who are advocates, including my friends from AFSP, every counselor, every volunteer, and all the advocates have been strong in this fight. We stand with you. You have stood in the gap when others turned away. And for your support and for your partnership, I say thank you. Next, I introduce a colleague, a friend with whom I've done mental health policy, and her heart and her mind, her soul is into getting progress done in this issue area. I present to you Congresswoman Salinas from the Northwest.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Thank you to everyone who's here. I'm going to bypass a lot of the things that have already been said. It's very hot. I thank my colleagues for being here and for all the advocates, including the Trevor Project. And thank you to Representative Davids for bringing us all together. It is a really dark day in the LGBTQ community. And I say this as a mom to a queer daughter, 20 years old. I say this as an advocate, as an ally, and as someone who knows mental health in my family. This is a devastating time. And today the Trump administration is shutting down what for some is the only lifeline, the 988 press 3, to have someone there on the other end who can directly speak to the needs of our LGBTQ2SIA plus youth. This is critical. And I started thinking, what would I say to Mr. Trump if I had to sit down, not to be political, but just to be earnest? And I would say to him, I would never want you on the other end of a telephone call from someone asking for help for which you don't have that lived experience. Someone who is a relative, someone who needs dire help at that moment. Because all you can do is love that person and you hope it's enough. But when we have the critical services that we have right now, and I have talked with my 988 Youth Line folks back in the district, they make a difference. It makes a difference for them who are doing the job of answering the lines. It makes a difference for the other person who is seeking help. It is a lifesaver. And mental health is not a partisan issue, and our children should not be either. I'm committed to expanding access to specialty mental health care by securing funding to train professionals who provide culturally relevant care, and I won't stop fighting until everyone can access that affordable, high-quality care they deserve. I'm leading a letter with many of my colleagues here today to the House Appropriations Committee because Congress does have the power of the purse, urging them to fund the lifeline. Again, our goal is to make it a bipartisan letter, and we're almost at 100 co-signers. And until the lifeline is back up and running, it's critical that we stand up for the LGBTQ community and hold our president accountable for this cruelty. And to all the LGBTQ youth in Oregon and across the country, I want you to know that you are not alone. We are here today for you. In Congress and across the country, know that we care about you, we see you, and we will not stop fighting for you. We will not remain silent. Thank you. And now I pass it off to my good colleague from New York, Congressman Lawler.
Well, good morning, everyone. And I want to thank all of my colleagues for being here today. And I'd especially like to thank the advocates, the mental health professionals, and especially the young people who have made their voices heard on this issue. Across the Hudson Valley, I hear from worried parents, teachers, school counselors, and mental health professionals who are seeing more and more kids struggling. And the reality is that kids today are facing real mental health challenges, and they're reaching out for help. And for our LGBTQ plus youth, those challenges are often more severe. According to the CDC, 45% of LGBTQ plus high school students have seriously contemplated suicide. Let that sink in. almost 1 in 2. That's a stunningly high number, and exactly why mental health needs to be available to these kids. Since its launch in 2022, the LGBTQ plus specialized line within 988 has responded to more than 1.3 million calls, texts, and chats. That is more than 2,100 contacts every single day. Every one of those contacts represents a young person who decided to reach out, to live, to be heard, to get help. It's why the specialized line exists and why it matters so much. Earlier this year, I wrote a letter to Secretary Kennedy urging him to reverse course and to keep this line. In that letter, we made something very clear. Yes, we believe in parental rights. Parents should be actively involved in their children's lives and decisions. That is a fundamental and foundational right of every parent in this country. And all of us standing here are not going to agree on every aspect of these issues. But what we should agree on, and what we must agree on, is that when a child is in crisis, when they are alone, when they are afraid, when they are unsure of where to turn to, where they are contemplating suicide, they need access to help right away. You know, on President Reagan's tombstone, it's a quote in which he says, "I know in my heart that man is good, and that what is right will always eventually triumph, and that there is purpose and worth to each and every life, regardless of where you stand on these issues. As Americans, as people, we must all agree there is purpose and worth to each and every life." This lifeline has provided help. It has connected young people with trained professionals who understand what they are going through. And in many cases, it has saved lives. As we have seen with veterans, for instance, where veteran suicide is at an alarming rate. 22 veterans kill themselves every day. Having the ability to speak to other veterans who have lived that experience is paramount in saving lives. The same is true for LGBTQ plus youth. I have always tried to bring a practical, common sense approach to this job. And from my perspective, cutting a program that is working, that is meeting a real and growing need, just does not make sense. We should be expanding access to mental health services, not reducing it. We should be making it easier for young people to find help, not harder. The 988 line has been a success. It is simple, it's accessible, and it provides competent care that meets people where they are. And that's why I'm here. That's why I joined this bipartisan effort to maintain this service. Our job is to protect the health and well-being of the American people. And that includes every young person, regardless of who they are, where they come from, what they are going through, or how they identify. Every one of us has been touched by suicide. It is a horrible experience when a loved one believes that their only option, their only path forward is to take their own lives. We have failed as a society. We owe it to the American people to get this right. I next want to turn it over to my colleague from New Hampshire, Representative Chris Pappas.
Well, thanks very much, Mike. I appreciate you being here and all of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle for joining this press conference today, with a special thanks to Congresswoman Davids for her leadership on this issue. You know, it's really a disgrace that we stand here today as such an important door is being closed. We should be standing here today celebrating the fact that 988 has been in place for nearly 3 years since it was launched in 2022 after bipartisan legislation was passed through Congress. We should be taking stock of the notion that we have helped a number of veterans across our country who have access to the crisis line today because of the work that Congress has done that nearly 2,100 LGBTQ plus youth each and every day have been able to get services through this line. I think about my constituents. I think about a mom that I talked to after a town hall meeting just a few weeks ago who pulled me aside and talked to me about her son who passed away. And she urged me to do everything I possibly could to maintain funding for 988 and to make sure that it reaches the LGBTQ youth that Congress intended it to reach. So the fact is that this is part of, I believe, an overall attack on the LGBTQ plus community that is political in nature, but that does an incredible disservice to young people who are struggling right now, who deserve every possible door to be open to them, and who deserve to know that there's someone in their corner. The professionals, the counselors that staff this line, that provide real-time support to thousands of LGBTQ youth who are in crisis every day, we need to make sure that that work can continue. We all know people that struggle with mental health. It's at a crisis point in districts like mine, and this shouldn't be a partisan issue. This is a basic human issue. This is about compassion. And so I want to make sure that we continue to do everything we can in Congress to speak out against this cruel and wrong-headed decision by the administration, to work through the appropriations process, to shore up critical funding, and to make sure we're calling on this administration to right this wrong, to make sure that they see that there is a way forward to fund specialized services and to make them available to LGBTQ youth in a way that will provide the right help at the right time and will open more doors that will save lives. So again, thanks everyone for being here, and with that I want to turn it over to our next speaker, Congressman Krishnamurthy.
Thanks. Good morning. Thank you so much for your attention to this very important issue. You know, every 45 seconds, an LGBTQ youth attempts suicide. Every 45 seconds, a family is about to be shattered. Every 45 seconds, we have a chance to act. Back in 2018, on a bipartisan basis, members of Congress came together to act. And so they created this 988 Press 3 option for LGBTQ youth in crisis. At that time, Senator Orrin Hatch, a Republican from Utah, said that this is one of the great tragedies that has befallen the United States, that so many LGBTQ youth attempt suicide. And they're at 4 times greater risk than the rest of the population. So Republicans and Democrats came together, authored the legislation, passed it out of Congress, and President Trump signed it into law. Now, however, President Trump is undoing the very legislation that he signed into law. You may ask the question, why? It's under an anti-DEI initiative. Unfortunately, because of this DEI initiative, a lot of LGBTQ youth are at risk to DIE. They are going to die because an administration is pursuing a political agenda and not an agenda to help people. That, to me, is malfeasance. And so today, on a bipartisan basis, we come together to say, fund the line, save the line, and hold the line. The 988 hotline, Press 3 option for LGBTQ youth. Finally, I just want to say a big thank you to my bipartisan colleagues on this particular initiative. I'm proud to help lead this, but I'm proud to stand with the Trevor Project and other advocates who are doing their part to make sure that even as this option disappears today, that they provide other resources to all those LGBTQ youth who are paying attention in the audience right now. Please go to the Trevor Project. Please utilize the other resources today to make sure that you have somebody to talk to in your time of need. Thank you so much. And now I'd like to pass it over to my good friend and colleague, Representative Moulton from Massachusetts. Thank you.
I wrote the law to establish 988. I co-authored it with a fellow veteran, Chris Stewart, from Utah. It saved countless lives, thousands a month, who call the line and are able to get help. And as a veteran, I know how important it is to my fellow veterans to be able to press 1 and speak with someone specifically trained to deal with veterans' issues. Well, until today, that's the experience that LGBTQ youth in America have been able to have as well, to push 3 and speak to someone specifically trained for their issues. It's saved thousands of lives. Thousands of kids are alive today because of that service. Not long ago, I was speaking on the Capitol steps to a middle school group, and I told them about passing 988, and I wanted to make sure that they share it with their friends. But after I spoke and got a picture with these middle schoolers, a lady from a different group came up to me and she said, "I'm sorry to interrupt, sir, but I want you to know that your law saved my daughter's life." And then she introduced me to her 13-year-old daughter. These are the real Americans whose lives are being saved every day by this service. And yet the Trump administration wants to bring it to an end. Apparently, Eric RFK Jr. doesn't care about kids' lives in America, not when it comes to making a political point. They'd rather choose ideology and hate over care. They'd rather choose political demonization over keeping kids safe. I'm proud that this is a bipartisan effort to restore this service and to ensure that no administration, Democrat or Republican in the future, can take it away. This is not good governance, it's irresponsibility. This is not saving money, it actually costs taxpayer lives, taxpayer dollars. It actually costs taxpayer dollars every time a life is lost to suicide. So we need to get back on track. And that's why you see so many of us speaking out this morning. Thank you all very much for coming. And for those of you out there who still need help, dial 988. Dial 988. If you or a loved one is in a mental health crisis, dial 988. It could save your life.
Thank you all for being here today, and thank you to my colleagues and to the Trevor Project for joining us in this effort to save the 988 Press 3 option. We are going to conclude now and drink some water.